Let's go from making the playoffs to not even getting close, actually. And
They're executing the plays, and they are doing what's needed and necessary to win football games.
They just didn't show up again. Another team showed up to play with a game plan, executed the game plan, and then the Bills did not.
Just a couple of guys, a couple microphones, and a heck of a lot of no. It's Football on the No with Jim and Joe.
what is your guys' opinion on the catch?
No, that was fun to
It
say.
was a complete
It's a very
catch.
debatable
I don't think so.
catch.
Absolutely.
What they say, it's not the X's and the O's, it's the Jimmies and the Joes.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Football on the No. I am Jim McPhee, and alongside of me is Mr. Joe DeCapita.
What's going on, Odos? Welcome back for another edition of Football on the No Show. We are ready to go, and we got some things to cover for you guys, because in this blank slate that we have of this part of the season, there's nothing going on. So, but we do have a little bit of news about some NFL rule changes that have taken place. We're going to go over those for you guys, and anything else that kind of pops up. There's a little bit, very slight, little bit of NFL news. But other than that, we're going to hammer it down for you and get right into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys haven't already, make sure you guys go to our YouTube page and hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the notification bell and let you know whenever we go live. And then also like us on Facebook as well. That always helps out. But
anywhere you get your podcasts.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Whenever you get your podcast.
Spotify, iTunes, you name it, we're there. Drop a follow. And don't forget, now that we're live right here, if you happen to be joining us, don't forget to drop a comment down below. Let us know that you are around. Say hi. Or even if you want to add something to the show, please do so.
Absolutely. So, yeah, well, one of the biggest headlines that's coming out now is the 2023 NFL Spring Meeting has concluded, and the league approves new rules affecting scheduling, kickoffs, and they even let you know when the new Super Bowl it will be played and other news like that, Joe. We always go over this every year, and it's funny, too, some of the rules that end up changing and the people's reactions to them and how it affects things. So let's start off with the new rule about the kickoffs. Let's bring it up here. We got the list of some of the changes that happened here. And they approved a rule in 2023. Now they will allow teams to signal for a fair catch anywhere between the 25-yard line and the goal on the kickoff and be awarded the equivalent of a touchback, ball spotted at 25-yard line. So, Joe, like you and I were talking about this off air, and it's like you said, it's basically it extended the end zone to the 25-yard line. You know,
yeah, it's insane, and I understand the reason why they're doing. They're calling it player safety rule. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where the NFL is trending towards. Like every rule that they can change that might make the game a little safer, they're going to address it. They're going to do so. And you were telling me too that that there was a vote put to the coaches and the players, and they all voted it down.
Yeah, absolutely.
So after hearing that, and then guess what? Who writes the checks? The owners. Mm-hmm. You know, the owners and the NFL got together and like, hey, let's pass this thing. This is going to make it safer for everybody. And they're like, oh, we're in. We're in. It didn't matter. That whole vote between players and coaches, it was just more like, let's get an idea of what they feel like.
Yeah.
And then trump that idea and just approve it anyway. So this is how the NFL is looking at it, like a safer type of play. I know college has had made this rule change probably back around 2018, 2019. So like college football's been doing it. Now the NFL is going to adopt it into the NFL, and they're saying that it's going to make it definitely safer. Rich McKay, the chairman of the competition committee, has stated that it's going to decrease the return rate from 38% to 31%, and the concussion rate will drop because of it 15%. I appreciate the safety concerns. I really do. However, most of the time, and I still think this is going to continue. Most of the time when a kickoff happens, I know this is a new rule and you can use it, but whether they field the ball at the 2, the 5, the 10, the 15, wherever it's fielded, they usually just go.
Yeah.
So something tells me that this rule even though I think some teams might utilize it, like if you know you're pinned and you're returning, you see everybody coming, now you can fair catch it. I'm going to get it at the 25 anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
But a lot of the better special teams, the blocking of special teams, the better teams that know how to block very well, or you might have a bona fide superstar returner that is going to give it a shot anyway.
Yeah.
This rule won't apply to them because they're going to return it regardless of this rule. So I understand they're trying to get away from, the head injuries and things of that nature. But I just think that, like, even though they did this rule, okay, fine. But I don't think it's going to decrease that much.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing. It's arguable because, again, I think everybody's initial reaction has got to be even too, because, like, what? Because that's what you're thinking. You're just thinking that, like, all right, well, you're saying from the 25 to, the 1 yard line, you can get right to the 25. But how often does that really happen? Sometimes it does, but for me, when I think about it, it really affects anywhere between the 10-yard line and the 1 yard line, because that's when you might think that, say, hey, all right, then maybe I'll just take this one and we'll get it at the 25.
Right.
Anything after that, if you're getting it at the 15 or somewhere around there, like you said, guys are ready to grab that. I can get from there to there in the amount of time that they're coming to get me. So I can get past the 25 on this one. I'm not going to think twice about, I'll take it at the 25. Why not? I'm going to surrender myself. So how much will it decrease that much? And if you're talking about 38 to 31%,
that's a big difference.
I guess when you look at how many times it might happen,
it's a really big difference.
On kickoffs, again, a lot of times on kickoffs, how often does he even drop that short? Maybe if they decide to squib on purpose, you know what I mean? But then also, they kick it deep in the end zone a lot of times. So you see a lot of touchbacks now.
Right.
So, I mean, it might be one of those changes. Like I said, the initial reaction, we're kind of like, whoa. But as you watch it, I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference as we're like, all right, touchback, because it got, deep. And then once we get one of those, I guess where he does field it at the 5, if it is round, we'll see if they decide to take it or not, or if I think they go. But
honestly, just based on the player, like players out there, when they catch the ball, they're going to want to return it. They're not going to want to fair catch it. You know what I mean? Obviously, if their coaches say, hey, if it's behind the 5-yard line, you know what I mean, and you're still in play, let's just fair catch it. Let's just take that and we'll get it at the 25 regardless. But I've seen, like, I was watching highlights of kickoffs, and a lot of times it wasn't in the end zone. Like, every kicker in the NFL should be able to boot it into the end zone if need be to get a touchback, right? But now with this new rule, this changes the whole game. There's going to be trial and error. There's going to be times when maybe a guy's supposed to fair catch it, you know what I mean? And the special teams coach is like yelling at him on the sideline, don't return it. And they actually just take off. Like, there's going to be some miscommunication. This is going to be a whole other kind of like a little bit of a not an issue, but like a hurdle for special teams coordinators, for the players, because now it's adding a new element to the game to where I'm usually ready to just take the ball and I'm going. There is no thinking part. Now I got you go out there and you get the ball and you return it and you only get to the 15-yard line. It's like, dude, I told you to fair catch it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's going to be some other issues now with this thing, but I still think that it's one of these rules where they're trying to change the game too much. Like, I understand the safety aspect of it. I completely get that. But this rule change, I don't think it's going to be that big of a difference. Like, it's going to be one of these things where, like, it's there to be safe, but it's up to you guys to make it happen.
Yeah. We've got Paul Matty's in the house with us tonight.
What's going on, Paul?
Greetings from Playa Linda Beach, Florida.
Welcome to the show, brother.
Once again. What does he think about this? Let us know in the comments, Paul. He's a former coach and things, so he's seen this.
We're talking about the new rule for kickoffs, where they're able from between the 25-yard line and the goal line that they are now allowed to fair catch it and get the equivalent of a touchback to the 25.
Yeah, and like you even said, it varies by returners. Some guys already thinking they got to take it anyways,
or they make up their mind. Like,
just
when
they're
you
ready to take it.
Right, when you have some of those guys that maybe they're not as impactful as a returner, just fair catch it. Just fair catch it. We're gonna get 25.
Yep.
It's going to be a huge disadvantage for any special teams coach, because whether you're on the receiving end or kicking off.
Yeah.
Like now it's just you're at a disadvantage
Right.
because of this rule change. You're allowing them to just get it at the 25 if they just see fit. They can just fair catch it.
Yeah. It
Every
makes
time.
me even think then, like when the penalty is charged at the, on the kickoff, you know what I mean? Hey, they get a penalty here. What's this penalty would now be charged to the kickoff? Like, how will that affect any of that? You know what I mean? Because they move
get
the
it at
ball
the
here and there.
25.
So, I mean, they just will get it there anyway.
You know,
so,
that's the thing is like they can either like have them re-kick but instead of a kickoff, it's going to be more like a punt, or they can just say, well, we're going to take the ball at the 25 and take the penalty. You know what I mean? Like there's going to be, there's so many more, like there's so many little nuances now that have been added to the kickoff.
Yeah.
And it's not excitement. Like for me, this is terrible.
Yeah.
Because now that excitement that you once had, like, okay, boom, catch the ball at the 2. Let's go. Let's see if he can return it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
now
yeah.
that takes away that excitement element because now it's going to be like, well, or we could just play it safe. Let's play it safe and get it at the 25, fair catch it. So I'm not really 100% with this rule. I think it's kind of a little bit ridiculous because like we stated before, it's basically now it's just an extension of the end zone. So either it's a touchback in the end zone where they kick it through, or you fair catch it between the 25 and the goal line. You're still getting it at the 25. It's like it takes that excitement factor out of it.
Yeah, and some people again think it's the beginning of the end of the kicking in football. You know what I mean? That's the one thing people bring up too. Again, like, oh, you start to do this, then you start slipping down that slope where they try to remove it completely because they've even tried to change kicking the way it is and try to say about where the battle in the trenches were and people climbing on each other, being closer to the end zone, and things about being more, dangerous. And Bill Belichick's been one of those things. He's the one reason why the kicking field goals and extra points have changed.
Yeah.
Because of things like, oh, how many guys get injured? That's why, it happens. And but when it comes to punting now, how would that affect all that? Because punting, again, you still would be able to get that returner and things can happen from that and still can break out one of those runs.
That doesn't change that.
But yeah, and I think that punting is just as important and even to safety as the kickoffs are because it's a shorter field. And so they are getting down there quicker. But you wouldn't be able to regulate that into like a fair catch type of deal to where, people do it still to where they get it where they are, but how would that affect when it gets towards the end zone again? Would it still just be coffin kicks or not? It's just.
This doesn't
it's a
change,
weird thing. I know it doesn't change that now, but again, like, what does it mean for the future?
And you can't change punting that way. You just can't because the kickoff is one thing. But punting is different. Punting, you're no way you can get around it unless you just completely got rid of punting.
Yeah.
Like now we're just gonna be like, how far can you throw it? You know what I mean? Like it's going down, like you said, like you start to head down the rabbit hole here, and you don't want to go too far down because once you do that, you change the game way too much.
Right.
And we've seen this already. This has taken place. This isn't the first time that they've done the safe rule, and then it evolves into something ridiculous. Like everybody complains about hitting quarterbacks. You can't hit them in the head. You can't hit their arm. You can't hit them below the waist. And then even sometimes when you land, and you can't land on them either. So it's like it's changed that part of the game. Now there is no such thing as like we're going to kind of rough up the quarterback a little bit, and then by the fourth quarter, he's not going to be the same guy. Now that's changed. Now you cannot touch the quarterback, or you might get a catastrophic, penalty where your team needs, you can't afford to give that up. So you have that, and this is just another thing that is coming into play that I feel like later on it might hurt the team. Good thing is it's a 1-year trial. Yeah, it's only for this upcoming season. They're going to try it out, and when they all realize that this is stupid. They're going to get rid of it next year. So I understand what they're trying to do, but then again, like you brought up the punting. Like punting, that's not going to change. That's basically the same thing. When you have those returns and everything. Now, remember, they did put a rule in years back where they got rid of the wedge. Yeah. So every team used to have a wedge. They used to have like 3 fullbacks, 3 big size guys that could run, and they created a wall. And the returner would run behind them, and guys would just come flying in, bashing right into the wall to kind of break it up to get to the returner. They got rid of that
Yeah,
because of the
remember those days?
collisions.
Yeah.
So now here's some years down the road.
Yeah.
Now they're changing. Now you can get a touchback from 25 all the way through the end zone. Like, come on.
Yeah, they're giving it space, and it's kind of funny because I thought about it. The fact that also, when you're playing backyard football, you don't do the kicking and the punting and all that stuff. You take it from this yard line or this spot,
Right.
and then we'll take it to this spot, and then we march down.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like that's trying to lead to. And we only do that because we have limited space. It's not like, we're trying to do it for our own safety anyways. Cause
Right.
again, we're either playing touch or flag.
And
or
none of
even
us
if we
can
do
kick.
it. Yeah, exactly. That's true too, man. Let me tell you. It's tough until you really try it. You know what I mean? You think, oh, I could do that. When they do those competitions at the stadiums to win free beer
Right.
for a year or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's what it boils down to. It ends up being the same type of deal. It's like, all right, you guys get the ball now, you start there. All right, and then you guys get the ball now, you guys start there, and now you try to defend while you do this, and it just seems like you're playing half the game. That's what it seems like to me. Half of what the game was meant to be.
Yep.
So,
and that's the problem is
Well,
that
we'll see.
that this is the problem is that they're trying to change too many rules. They've already changed rules before that do have a huge impact on the game. Well, like we just mentioned the quarterback rules and all those changes, and now it's like, you're scared to touch a guy now. You're scared to hit that quarterback or knock him down because I might have cost my team now, a penalty. So it's like that does impact the NFL, and you've seen it already. You've seen it with even pass interference calls. You know what I mean? Like defenders they don't know if they can put their hands on the receiver or not. And it depends on the refereeing crew. Some call it one way, others call it another way. So all of these rule changes dramatically impact the game. So I hope that this rule here is one and done and gone after the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at some of the other changes they did. Approve the ability to flex Thursday night football games between weeks 13 and 17 now. They have been doing this with Sunday night games, and it's been productive. It's been working out well for them. And I think even this had come into play because of the reasoning with the Amazon. Let's be real. The Amazon game stunk. You know what I mean?
They were bad.
A lot of the matchups were bad. Teams that didn't matter.
They thought,
and then even the crew is the crew, but they just weren't good games altogether.
They honestly thought that when they schedule these games, though, that it's like well in advance. Like they're kind of like projecting on how good each team might be. Like they're almost going off of last season.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean? Like Bengals, they were good last season. Guess what? We're going to put them in prime time. Okay, that's a great idea. But then there's some teams where you're like, they were okay last year. Let's give them a shot at prime time against the Bengals. And then by the time that game rolls around that season, it's like, oh, they have 3 wins. Like, this is not going to be a good game. The Bengals are going to roll through them. And now they're going to be able to, on Thursday nights, be able to flex those. Unfortunately, they limited it to weeks 13 and beyond. But
I think they only did that too because, again, where the teams now, by that time, you should kind of see where they are in the standings and how well the team is doing to where it might be a more enticing
honestly,
game.
I think it should be week 8 and beyond. I mean, when you get through like pretty much half the season, you know what teams are what. So they should have kind of bumped that up a little bit because we might have some egg games. You know what I mean? They might before week 13, and it's going to be a little disappointing, but at least they come out with it and they approve that now. Now they're going to be able to fluctuate some games and hopefully some good games. We've also seen them kind of stick with games before and not flex them out. And you're like, why are we watching this game? Last year, Monday Night Football games, some of them were atrocious and they never flexed them out. And the same thing could be said for Sunday night games. So hopefully they do a better job for Thursday night.
Yeah, and this was another thing that got voted down by the players. And, but again, owners and the NFL decided they want to do it because, again, that's why they think of revenue, eyes watching it, and that's what I mean. And I think, I really think Amazon didn't really get a lot of, ratings for what they were expecting. Amazon's going to get what it does because people still get it. A lot of people have Prime, but we all talked about the games, what I mean, and how they weren't really great. So I think they want to try and improve those numbers and make Amazon's investment a little better and, to what they had put up for it. The only thing is too that the players and stuff look at this and say, you're already giving me a short week or whatever. But then all of a sudden, I'm not supposed to be playing, but I could be notified, that I have to play. But I think they end up putting in a rule that a 4-week notice had to be at least required too. So to try and gauge this now, so this is what you're talking about though. So all of a sudden, between 13 and 17, so you're talking about, what is that, week 8 or 9, as you're saying now, it would have to be, hey, week 9, these guys look pretty good. How about that week 13 game? Maybe we flex out or something like that. And they have to let the clubs know so they can try and plan accordingly. Get the everybody rested and stuff, and players and the coaches and stuff, and also even brought up the fact that they care about ticket sales too, and the fans being able to do it and change tickets if they had to on some of those days for those Thursdays.
Yeah, it creates a bigger deal in the front office, right? Like ticket sales and stuff. So like if you have a ticket earlier, you know what I mean? Like early in the season, you buy it ahead of time. And you're like, I can't wait for Thursday night. I'm going to go party in Buffalo. You know what I mean? It's going to be awesome. And then you get the notice like, hey, by the way, your ticket is no longer good for Thursday night football. However, because I've seen clubs do this when they've made these swaps, is that they'll be like, but it's good for that Sunday night game or that Sunday game. You know what I mean? But I understand people have made plans. Now, like maybe the hotel rooms that they booked, they got to cancel those. They got to rebook and maybe hopefully find a hotel room, close to Buffalo or whatever, and on Sunday instead. And by then, who knows? Maybe you get one, maybe you don't. So there's a lot more, finer details into this that the NFL doesn't really care about, honestly. Like they just care about ratings. They care about making money. So as a fan, of course, you're going to be a little upset. And rightfully so.
Yeah. I mean, but again, fans, at least watching it, not going, we will get to see probably a better game, here,
Hopefully.
Going forward, stuff. And we've seen that be like kind of cool. I mean, we've seen the Giants even get flexed last year into one of those primetime games. So, and they end up being pretty good games. So, I mean, we'll only benefit that way about it. Again, just some people voicing their, displeasure with it, with the teams, with the logistics and what they have to do with traveling and stuff. And those short weeks are always something to complain about. But we've already seen time and time again that no matter what they even say, NFL's going to do what they want. I mean, look at what they're doing in pushing the Euro issue. Now, there's been more games in Germany again, more in London. So they're going to keep it going. And then we're going to see France maybe too. Who knows? It's going to go.
And
over.
the interesting thing about both of these rules, I mean, they put them to a vote to these players and coaches. They turned them both down. But what I'm wondering is, when did they do the votes? Like, did they do the votes before? Like, did they only show them like kind of like that, like the clip that we have? Like, well, we're gonna flex games. Yeah. And everybody's probably, the players and coaches are like, wait, whoa, what does that mean? Like last second? Like, are you gonna flex a game on Monday?
Yeah.
When we're planning to go there on a short notice? And I feel like that little caveat that you just mentioned, like, no, they got to plan 4 weeks ahead.
Yeah.
That changes everything. So maybe the coaches and players were thinking, no, you guys can't do it last second. You can't do it a week away from our game. That's crazy. Now we got to change all our plans. We got to change everything over. So maybe that had something to do with both of those rules when they voted them down. You never know. If maybe they didn't know all the details.
Yeah, because you don't even know, like Drew Brees has said this and other people, that how they voice displeasure with playing Thursday anyways. Again, because you're talking about safety all the time with now this kick rule, but then you're making us play on a short week where we don't get the rest that we want, and we're even limited practice, and then we try and practice quick before we do it, and maybe possibly we can get more injuries, And I think Drew Brees had tried to cite one of his stats there on Thursday nights, how many times people get injured on Thursday night to try and support that theory. But
because their bodies don't have a full week to rest and recover.
Yeah.
Like, bottom line, like, their bodies are so beat up week to week. Like, and you see it throughout the year. Some guys are playing hurt all season long. And that just goes to show you how long it actually takes to recover as an athlete.
Yeah.
So when they have to play these shorter weeks, like Thursday night football, man, they're almost nearly limping out of there.
Yeah, and you've heard it say that it's like being in a car accident every time you play in a game is like being in a car accident. So imagine having that many car accidents within a week or two, But all right, so yeah, let's look at one of the other changes that they did, and they approved the ability for clubs to add a third active quarterback to the 53-man roster without scratching that player. So that means again they can have an active quarterback there as an emergency player. This rule is now in place because of what happened with the 49ers last year.
It's the 49er rule.
It's the 49er
100%.
rule, absolutely. Because again, it's about ratings and a good team that was there, that was Super Bowl bound or playoff, far enough, that had a chance. And again, even with player safety, because Brock Purdy, when he went back into that game, he shouldn't have been back in that game. But they did what they thought they had to do to try and win.
But you got to
remember, this is where you
too,
sacrifice these players, and it's a bad thing.
That's the player, the competitive player wanting to go back in no matter what. I can still throw. I can still do it. You know what I mean? I want to be there for my teammates, all that type of thing. I get it. But long run, maybe it didn't, they say that it didn't, injure him any further, but maybe it did, maybe it didn't. So, but Brock Purdy looks good right now. I mean, I hear that he's about to start throwing that. He's throwing now, and they're saying like, when are you going to really start to test it? And he's like, well, he goes, we'll see. We don't really have a timetable on it. It's kind of like more about let's just feel it out, and then when I'm ready, that's when I'm going to start throwing again. We're not going to rush it. We're not going to label it, and I think the Niners are taking the right approach with him. Like, take it easy. Don't try to, force him out there or get him out there too early. Because, honestly, they like Purdy better than Trey Lance. I mean, it's kind of already been a thing now. So, and Trey Lance is another thing. Like, what do they do with Trey Lance now? Like, obviously he's still trying to fight for the job while Purdy's still injured. But, honestly, they've gotten calls before about Trey Lance's availability in a trade maybe to a team this year. That's kind of been floating around. So I feel like the Niners are doing, they're doing their due diligence. They're waiting for both players to be ready so they can have a real competition. And then whoever wins it, I feel like they have a trade asset. You know what I mean? Like, I think they like Purdy more than they do Lance. So most likely it will be Lance on the way out. But it's very interesting because these situations don't normally happen. Yeah. And for them, and now this new rule where you're allowed to have a third quarterback on your roster, but it doesn't count. As a roster spot is incredible it's an incredible advantage for teams in general, because that there's all these talented players, and sometimes you might have a hidden gem. Tony Romo for the Cowboys was a hidden gem. He was an undrafted free agent that came out of nowhere, and Bill Parcells recognized that. So maybe a guy like that, some teams might have a guy they really like, and they're like, man, really don't want to cut this guy. Now they don't have to. Now they can just put him, on the shelf, so to speak, and just maybe hold on to him and see what happens.
Yeah, and this is going to be kind of interesting, I think, if it does happen again. That kind of instance with the like what happened with the 49ers.
That's rare
because there are different stipulations to this whole thing too. It's like they said that if the quarterback has been knocked out, or whoever ends up being those two before this third the emergency quarterback gets active or is able to go in the game, the other two have to also go through tests within the game, and if they're cleared to play, they have to go back in and play. Then you pull that emergency guy out. Can't just keep him in. It's like, well, he's playing better, so we're just keep him in and things like that. That's not the way this rule works. And you can't bench a couple, like your first two quarterbacks, and for your third and say, well, let's see what happens.
We really like him.
Yeah. But I mean, and that's like a rare instance too. Like, how many times when you ask a coach, you're like, you're going to bench your first two starting quarterbacks to put your third string in? Then you obviously made an issue, or had a big problem with your quarterback room or something like that. I can see Bill O'Brien doing it because he's done something similar to that in the past, right? So it wouldn't work for him. But there are different stipulations like that during a game where you can't use them and it's null and void kind of and doesn't work out for your advantage. But it's good to have just in case. Yeah. And they said this rule was already in place in the NFL a while ago, like 10 years or so ago. And then I think they moved it away again to try and limit how many guys were active on the roster, try and modify it to that. But now they've modified it to make it work now. So again, like you said, it doesn't count as an actual roster spot. But you cannot have a guy off the practice squad all of a sudden be dressed and come in as your emergency quarterback, though, that week, though. That's one other thing. You can't activate somebody from a practice squad.
As a quarterback?
As a quarterback.
You can't activate him if there's an injury or anything?
Right. Yeah, right.
To replace him?
To actively replace. Yeah. To be that third guy that doesn't make a roster spot. It would have to be a roster move. Yeah. I read
ridiculous.
that over there. Yeah.
It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
Not going to lie.
And I just said there's loopholes around things.
There's no point then to have it.
Yeah. I know, because you're talking about injuries, right?
Because here's the thing is like because this is an advantage for any team, right? To have another guy that you can have on your roster doesn't count against your roster spots, but at least you get to keep them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think this is one of those things that might continue. It might go beyond the quarterback position because now teams might get greedy and be like, hey, let's try to do this. We want an extra linebacker, but that doesn't count against the roster spot, or an extra D end, or an extra like this could grow into something ridiculous, like utterly ridiculous. Like, oh, we want an extra kicker, an extra punter, an extra this. So in case these guys go down and we don't have anybody left, like that's my thing too. Is at what point can you have this quarterback come in? Because as you just mentioned, your two starting quarterbacks ahead of him have to be out. Like, no doubt about it, they have to be out in order for him to be able to go in and play.
Yeah.
They can't add a guy from practice squad. Now, what happens if those two quarterbacks are injured out? He gets to play in that game to finish it. Next week, they call up someone from the practice squad.
They can, but then I think you would have to take one of your other guys and probably put them on the IR or something like that. Because again, then you'd have to call up a practice guy.
That's what I'm saying.
From the practice squad and make him an active player.
It's a roster move.
Yes, roster move.
So those two guys are out. They're going to be out for quite some time.
Right.
They'll be put on short-term IR.
Yeah.
You call up a quarterback that's on your practice squad, and you have the third guy. Now, does the guy from the practice squad have to play, or the guy that's your third?
That guy that would be your third, because he would now be activated as your starter, right? Yeah, it would have to be that way. But you even have now, I think that you would think it would have to reset that. You can add another additional on top of that as an emergency quarterback still.
See, I don't think that would happen.
I don't know.
Apply.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because that wouldn't make sense because you're already using that third spot on the quarterback that's in there.
Yeah.
So now it's just a free agent signing at that point.
Could be. Yeah.
But like that to me is like you can't force a team to start the third quarterback. You know what I'm saying? In that situation, and you call up a guy from practice squad, you go through practice for the following week.
Yeah. Right.
The guy on the practice squad is playing a little bit better. I don't think you can dictate to a team who starts over who at that point.
Mm-hmm. But if you're even that desperate at that point, aren't teams looking even for free agents? Like they'd rather pick up a free agent. Like, hey, if this guy's out here, maybe this guy's out here, we'll put him in as our active starter.
A lot of times when that happens, they're not picking up a free agent to start. They're picking up a free agent to just be, a backup in case something is to go awry. So, I with the limitations that rule has in it, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, it's cool to have an extra guy on the team, but it's just like, we're never going to use him.
Yeah, basically, he's there just in case.
You know what I mean? Like, I understand it, but, man, who wants to be that guy now? Who wants to be the guy, the elf on the shelf, and just gets to, like, hang out, practice? I'm probably never going to play.
Right.
But
but that's why I'm wondering, even during game, like how far does that go? Because like you said, every player wants to be able to say, I'm good to throw. Well, all of a sudden, say a doctor says, hey, physically he's able to go still. Like he can. It's just about pain tolerance.
But you know
does
what?
that automatically say that, all right, well, the doctor said he's cleared, so he has to go in? Because that's
No.
what kind of like it says. It
'Cause
says if he's active and
that's
he's
fine.
cleared to play,
Right.
that he has to go back in, and the emergency guy
That's
has
fine.
to
What
go out.
that's fine. What the rule says. I guarantee you, the team doctors are gonna label him out.
yeah.
They're not gonna leave it up to chance. They're
Yeah,
gonna be like,
yeah.
nope, he's out for the.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, then he's out.
Yep.
You get to play your emergency guy. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yep. So I mean, it's always something that people are definitely talking about, and have a strong opinion about a lot of times.
Yeah.
But again, then they just also out of the meetings, talked about the Levi Stadium is going to host the Super Bowl in 2026, I think.
26. Yep.
And the Green Bay Packers, the Green Bay is going to host the draft.
2025.
2025. I mean, now I kind of wonder what that's going to be like. I mean,
Title Town, baby.
yeah, it's cool. And again, I'm sure late April is still warm, I guess, up there and stuff. But it should be interesting because they were so used to New York City, and then I get when they moved to some of the different other big cities. But then Kansas City is a large city, but they're mainly there's there I think because of Kansas City Chiefs regaining popularity with how well their franchise have been doing.
Yeah.
But
'Cause they
Green
won the
Bay,
Super
I'm
Bowl.
interested how it's going to play out.
Yeah, Green Bay will be interesting. I think they're going to do a good job. Like I have seen, like outside the stadium, it looks like that venue that they're going to be able to display is going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Like I feel like they're going to do a good job as long as they do it right. They're going to do a really good job. What I will say is that this past draft, I didn't think was very good. I think it was very plain.
Yeah.
Like the very nothing like too extravagant, nothing too cool. You know what I mean? Like they had like the statues that they kind of normally have for like every player, and you could kind of get up there and take a selfie with like where you look like an NFL player type of deal. And they had some cool things, but like I remember like Dallas, like when Dallas had the draft, they had this display, like every team had like a TV monitor walking towards the stadium, and it was like replaying like the draft, like draft picks, like highlights of draft picks and stuff like that. Like that was kind of cool. And they had such a large area to utilize, where Kansas City looked like it was like a fair. It was like a fairgrounds type of deal where they had the grass out front, and then like when you went closer to the stage is when they had groups of fans. But it was like other than that, it was like where's all the activities? Where's
it
like
kind of
the
looked like a
cool
concert,
stuff?
just an outdoor
Yeah.
concert. Yeah,
In
I kind of get
a
that.
sense. So I think Green Bay is going to do a really good job with it. Like I think that they're going to come up with some pretty good, decent ideas how to utilize the draft and how to make it entertaining for everybody. And we've seen that before, where like certain venues do a good job, where others kind of it's like really. So
Yeah.
drop the ball, so to speak. So
Yep.
hopefully Green Bay's got their head on straight.
Yeah,
here.
with the history behind it all too, absolutely. Because I mean, I remember with Nashville, even Nashville did like the whole country music type of rock and roll
Yep.
and everything too,
Yep.
type of feel with guitar picks. You didn't see any of that with Kansas City, and Kansas City's like known for
Where was the
barbecue
barbecue?
and things
That's
like
what
that.
I mean.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was
Where was
nothing
the
going
barbecue?
crazy, right?
Kansas City's known for barbecue.
Yeah.
I expected a lot of barbecue happening.
Yeah, I don't know. But let us know what you guys think about new rules out there. Absolutely. One of the other issues or headlines that are out there too is the fact that Saquon Barkley, now that OTAs had started, people are showing up and getting some workouts in. Saquon Barkley, nowhere to be found here for the New York Giants. And it's because, he's dealing with the contract situation here. Again, he came out right after the season ended and said, hey, I want to be a Giant. I want to be here.
Right.
I don't want to be the highest paid, but I just want to be appreciated. And then kind of everything he said, and now what he's doing kind of seems opposite. You know what I mean? It's like he had turned down some multi-million-dollar deals here where it seemed really good for him, because he's still viewed as that guy like, hey, what are you yet? Because you've had the first year and a half that you looked pretty good. And then since then, you've been injury plagued. Last year, you bounced back, but was it Brian Dable's offense? Your fact that you're staying healthy, too. We got to see you again, but I don't know. The team, obviously, is not looking into a big investment, I think, into him. And, he wants more,
I think some of the contract ideas that the Giants have come out with, it almost seems to me like Saquon wants to be the higher paid running back. Like, despite what he said before, like, yes, I still believe that Saquon, of course, wants to stay with the Giants. He's got his family there. That's his home now. Like, of course he doesn't want to leave the Giants because he's had success with them. And honestly, the Giants are just trying to find a middle ground here where they can give him a really good contract, but also not cripple the Giants front office going forward. So obviously things are still going to have to get hashed out and negotiated, but I mean, for him to kind of like sit out of the OTAs and everything, it makes sense. This is what everybody does. Everybody that gets the franchise tag does this. This is not surprising at all. Josh Jacobs is doing the same thing. Hell, Josh Jacobs won the rushing title this past season, but he's not getting any kind of crazy offer just yet. We have to wait, and maybe that might be a ploy that Saquon is waiting for. Maybe he's waiting for Josh to get his deal.
Yeah.
To kind of piggyback that and be like, hey, he got paid this, so let's get something close to that. You know what I mean? And we've seen free agents and other players do this in contract negotiations before. So I don't think this is this isn't abnormal. This is normal. So anybody that's tagged and they haven't agreed to a deal yet, they're going to sit out OTAs. They're not mandatory. They are voluntary. So, of course, if we don't have a deal and I don't know that I'm going to be here for the long term, why should I go to the voluntary practices, the OTAs? It doesn't make sense. So help me get a contract done, and then I'll come and be more than willing to go to practice. But until I got some security, and that's where the big deal is for players, it's security. They want to know that they still have a place with the team for the long haul, not just we'll do it year by year, So for Saquon and other guys that have been tagged and don't have deals yet, expect this to happen. Like, they're going to wait till the deadline happens, and unless they come to an agreement, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, again, but when you look at the free agent market this past season too, a lot of those players thought they were going to get something here and
They always
settle in for less. I mean, yeah, I think Miles Sanders is getting something like $6.25 a year now,
Which is overpaying him.
Which I know, but that's what I mean. But even Saquon, on the franchise tag would be making 10.9, I think, or something like that a year.
10.1.
Yeah, something like that, and. But then, when you look at maybe, again, teams are looking at what happened with Zeke Elliott here and paying him I think they paid him, what was that, 16 or something like that, 17 million a year, something like that.
His contract was ridiculous.
It was crazy, but
he was making like around 17.
Yeah,
right.
I think I want to say 17. But I think Saquon, again, looking for somewhere, I think he turned down something, was like 14 something a year.
Should have not turned that down.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. Again, I don't think it's really stated on anything, but I thought rumors were saying that he turned down one where it was like 14 million a year. So that when you hear things like that, and I don't know if it's just that the Giants are putting that out now too, and his agent's not backing it up. Like, dude, we never saw anything like that.
Probably not.
They're trying to knock some of that down into negotiations here, because if they're not squaring up and getting something done, because right now it seems like it's kind of cold. They're like kind of at a stalemate right now. Not really going to the table. So how long is this going to last? Because he hasn't even signed the franchise tag yet. So they're still got to work out this deal, or else he's not playing. Or whatever, you know what I mean?
No, what will end up happening is a lot of times they're going to take it right down to the wire, especially if there's no movement on negotiations or anything like that. For players, they just don't want to be there if they don't have a contract. So they're willing to hold out until it's necessary to come in and sign the deal, and then play one more year, and then see where it goes after that. If they're forced to, that's what they're going to do. Like Josh Jacobs is in the same exact boat.
Yeah.
Same exact boat. Won the rushing title. You would think that there would be they couldn't wait to sign him to a long-term deal. But the negotiations there as well are kind of at a stalemate.
Yeah.
And it's like they're both these players are in the similar situations.
Yeah.
And it's very unsettling for fan bases, because you don't want to see your players leave to go somewhere else, whether it be after this season or not. But it's one of those things where like these negotiations are not easy. And when you have these big profile type players, it takes way longer. You saw how long the Aaron Rodgers trade happened, right? Mm-hmm. How long that took? Mm-hmm. Well, this is negotiating a new deal for a very, high level player, or players, I should say, that, things take time. And until somebody kind of, speaks up and get something going, because we've seen this before where nothing happens for a while.
Yeah.
And then it's either the team or the agent call each other and they're like, yo, let's get this done. Like we're done with this whole like cold shoulder type deal. Like, let's get this. What's it going to take to get your client signed? What's it going to take to get my guy, locked up for the long term, 4 or 5 year deal? Let's get this done. And then they start to cram it in like the next 24 hours. We saw it with
Lamar Jackson
the quarterback for the Giants when it was getting
Daniel
down
Jones?
to the tag.
Yeah.
Tag, Daniel Jones. Like that was hours before the trade deadline was going to be, you had to make a decision. Who are you going to tag? Saquon or Daniel Jones?
Yep.
And they got that deal done right before the deadline, and then they tagged Saquon. So to be able to keep both those players.
Yep.
Now it's just another one of those scenarios where it might come down to the wire, and players like Saquon, like Josh Jacobs, and so forth, it might take it till we get close to the deadline, where they got to make a decision, where things might have to start happening then, and then when it's crunch time, then maybe those players get deals done all of a sudden.
And it's got to be the guaranteed money situation because they freed up the money by doing Daniel Jones's contract and put it really incentive laden. I think bonuses for doing this and that, that way they're able to get that franchise tag here on him. And they're going to just kind of say to him here too, like, well, you've been injured too and things like that. So how about we throw a bonus if you do this or play this many games for us and blah, blah. And he's kind of like, no, I ain't about that. I want this guaranteed and blah, blah, and this and that. And they're like, so that's what it's got to be, absolutely, with the guaranteed money here, just protecting his.
It's not just guarantees. There's so many different things of bonus accelerators. There's all different kinds of details that got to get worked out in these contracts. Base salaries and guaranteed money, like you just brought up, and workout bonuses and roster bonuses. There's so many different ways that you can orchestrate a contract to get the money that a player is looking for. But also, that's the hard part for teams, is they also don't want to cripple themselves.
Yeah, they're trying not to handcuff themselves.
So, and we've seen it time and time again where, the team doesn't want to do that, but then in the end, we're like, man, we really can't lose him. Yeah. We have to do something and do it now. And okay, we'll give him this, we'll give him that, but that's all we can do. And then all of a sudden things come together and then they get the deal done. So it's just one of those things that we're going to have to keep monitoring with guys like Saquon and Josh Jacobs and what have you.
Yeah.
But in the end, like both of those type of players, they are such big difference makers for both their respected teams that teams can't afford to lose a guy like that. Yeah. They can't let guys like that just walk. Like if the tag doesn't work this year, but they still play, the problem doesn't go away. It's going to be there for next offseason where now you're in jeopardy. You could tag them again, but it's going to cost you way much more money. Yeah. And then, or you might just lose them and watch them walk to free agency. And that's something that a lot of clubs don't want to happen.
Yeah.
And if it does, it sucks. But sometimes these situations, they don't get worked out either.
Yeah, and we're talking about it because these are the two high caliber, running backs, like you said. Because we've seen others again sign for lesser deals, but Austin Eckler even too getting the bonuses added to his contract, and he threw it out there as like, I'm this much of the team and blah blah blah, and then he was real quiet for a long time, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I'll sign these bonuses on top. Zeke's still out there in free agency, and then what do you think about the whole Dalvin Cook thing here, signing that extension in 2020? To make like $16 million a year too. I mean, which is a lot. And he now they take his face or part of the team off onto their Twitter feed and put Madison in there. So
we talked about that.
Yeah,
already.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, that is I think it's funny, but it shows what they think about the quarterback or the running back situation and value.
Well, I think it's not really value. I think it's more about like them as an organization. They're making a decision possibly to move on from Cook because you, as an organization, I know it's social media. I get it. But as an organization, you don't do those things lightly. You don't just take a player off a picture, a team photo that was there before and now you have Alexander Madison as the face of the of the backfield.
Yeah, the backfield. Yeah.
That doesn't really work. So I don't know what Minnesota's plans are. Are they just doing it for PR reasons to kind of like say, well, Cook is in trouble. We're going to stop drawing attention to Cook and to our organization. So let's remove him from the team picture. Maybe that could be it. Or maybe other things are happening behind closed doors that we just don't know about yet.
Yeah. Yep.
But guy, like you mentioned, like even in free agency, there's still running backs that could really contribute to a team, could even start. Guys like Kareem Hunt, Leonard Fournette, Zeke Elliott, just to name 3.
Yeah.
They're still out there. They're still looking for deals. Guess what? They're going to come on the cheap now because they just are looking for jobs at this point.
Yep.
So hopefully, fortunately, that these teams that are still trying to work out deals with their respected players and they want to keep them there, so hopefully deals get done before the deadline happens, and then everybody will be able to move on. So.
Absolutely. Like I said, OTA's getting started, so it's coming. It's going to be interesting offseason here, and a lot of different changes. We're already hearing some news out there about some of the camps starting up. I know Miami's added jiu-jitsu in their type of practice and everything, and then now we heard I heard people scrambling today, Jets fans, because Aaron Rodgers gets a strain in his calf or whatever. Now they're all worried, like, oh no, what's gonna go on? No, please
fine.
no, because they're obviously Super Bowl bound, in their mind. So, but
just REALAX, relax.
Absolutely, but I mean that's what we were talking about tonight. I mean, there's not a whole lot going on, so we thought we'd touch on a couple of different things. Rule changes are always a big topic here for people, and
debatable
we'll follow
topic as well.
The running back situation too,
Definitely.
and what the money does here, and where if the market gets reset for running backs.
I don't think it'll ever get reset again. I don't see it happening because again, we've seen it time and time again. Draft, free agency. Guys signed for cheaper. You can draft a guy in the draft and get a guy. Like, look at what the Falcons did. Well, a lot of people didn't see, but we saw it, is they took the number 1 running back coming out. And you know what? Despite the value chart, despite what everybody thinks of the value of running backs, they're not paying him a whole lot.
Yeah.
But he's a top-notch type of player. Now they got a cheap rookie that can come in and display his talents and really help that football club. So you might see the same thing happening with some of these other teams where they move on from some other players and they're going to bring in somebody else that can contribute. So that's all we have for today's show. If you've tuned in, thank you guys so much. Thanks to all our sponsors out there. Thank you, Know-It-Alls, for tuning in as always and showing us tremendous support. If you could just do us one more favor. One more. We always ask this every week, and we really need you guys to comply here because we're trying to grow. We're trying to get more well known here. Just help us out a little bit. All your friends, family members that are all into football, cousins, brothers, uncles, anybody, have them head over to our YouTube channel and just hit that subscribe button for us. Hit that notification bell to let you guys know when we go live. And as well, of course, you can always become a member, become a know-it-all on Facebook as well. And anywhere you get your podcasts. That's right. You can take us along with you on the go and be in the know with Football on the Know. So anywhere you get your podcast, Spotify, iTunes, you name it, we're there. Drop a follow there. If you want to be more interactive with us, tune in on our lives every Wednesday night. We're here for you. Drop a comment down below. We'll react to it. We'll have a good time. We'll even do a little bit of drinking.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting stuff. Maybe Cody will be here next week. Who knows? All right. Well, it was a good time. We'll see you guys next time.
Join us next week from 8 till 10 Wednesday night for more Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.